Hey everybody, welcome to my first podcast. I'm super excited to have a go at this. I'm by no means a professional at this. My name's Glenn Hallam and I'm a musician, predominantly a drummer from Corby in Northamptonshire. For the posh people, I live in Weldon, but beautiful town. I have history with Corby. I love it here. I was actually born in Kettering. For those that are old as I am, you will realise the differences we had between Kettering and Corby, but it's all part of growing up. And Corby was the town that we would always sneak off to, a bunch of friends of mine, because the music scene was just brilliant. They had various local heroes that were in bands, and the musicianship was just amazing. And for that reason, we spent most of our time over here. And consequently, you started joining bands and hanging out with these guys and had lots of fun. Now, I started playing, rumours. I can't actually, my earliest memories was being 7 years old and going with my father to brass band practice. My father passed around 4 years ago, but he was the most incredible trombone player. And he was in a lot of local bands like Corby Silver. There was a Gus brass band here. He was a member of that. I was even looking the other day at some early wedding photos of my father and my mother, and they got the arch with the trombones across as they walked out from the church. It was beautiful. So he was the king of it. He was the king of it. Never really made any money out of it. It was always kind of an amateur thing, but his quality in musicianship was amazing. And of course, I was brought up with that kind of work ethic. You would practice your instrument, and you do good with it. So my earliest memories were being 7 years old, and I remember walking into this practice room where a bunch of old guys, I mean, everybody's old when you're 7, but, and they plonked this huge piece of metal on my knee and said, have a go at blowing through that. Well, it happened to be an E-flat bass, although I didn't know at the time, and I was trying to get a note out of it. But whilst I was doing this, I could see a drum in the corner. Now, I'd obviously, my mum and dad said that I started playing around 5. I can't remember that. But, this drum came home inevitably. And then, obviously, I was given then some books, and I studied with my father just on the snare drum. Didn't have a kit of drums. And then, I mean, we're talking the 1970s right now. And then during the 70s, obviously, we had massive TV things like Top of the Pops and all the music programs that you would look. So every Thursday night, I'd sit down with my mum watching pop music and looking at the drummers and going, I want to be like that guy. I could safely say I was never on Top of the Pops, and I probably never became that guy. But I did, however, become who I am today, which I'm quite grateful for. Now, beyond that, and I'll go into more details if I carry this series on, beyond that, and now we come to 2020 and 21, and I've now been in a rock and roll band for the best part of 20 years. In fact, just over, I think it's 21 years this year. Now, through that period of being, for the last 20 years, I've been playing with two guys that are just incredible. A guitarist and singer called Paul Gallagher, and a bass player called Hugh Robson-Payne. And we're talking upright bass, just like they did in the early Elvis films. And there's something about that music that speaks to me. I enjoy playing it, and it makes people dance. And again, we'll talk about that in the future. So that's what I do now. Over probably about 12, 13 years ago, I started teaching. And I started teaching because I basically, my reasons were, lots of people were asking me stories when I was out on the road. And when I was out on the road, they'd always find them funny and interesting and whatever. And so I found that I could pass on my knowledge that I'd learned to children or even young adults, and so it evolved into where I am now. I currently have about 40 students a week, and up until a few years back, I'd probably be doing 2 or 3 shows a week as well. But there's my point, because I've been busy for the last 20 years playing music, but nobody really knows who I am. Now, doesn't bother me, or does it? Because that's what I'm talking about. I've never really hit the big time. I've never really gone for the big audition. I've never really done the big gig. Although, having said that, I have traveled to America and Canada and done shows in small bars and etc. And I was lucky enough, I think it was 2016, to be in an opening act for a Beatles tribute in the Ukraine to celebrate some kind of celebration day they were doing. Yeah, go figure. I don't know how we got there, but I managed to play to 30,000 people. One. That's not a tour event. That's one. I've never been endorsed by any company. I've always packed my own drums away, apart from that particular gig. And I'm just the average musician that goes out on a Saturday night. And like I said, this is where my point is. On a Saturday night, there are many hundred musicians probably traveling around the UK in their cars, part-time musicians, doing weddings, doing pub gigs, doing 50th, 60th, 70th birthday parties, and getting a little bit of pocket money, getting in their car, driving 3 hours back, and then probably waking up with their family and everything the next day. And those, I think, are the forgotten heroes of music. Now, if this podcast, hopefully this podcast will evolve, and I'm hoping to have some guests, but they're not going to be your mainstream drummers that you're all heard of. I want to introduce to you those people that are driving down the M6 to get home on a Saturday or a Friday night. For me, they're some of the best musicians ever. They really are. I've come across so many great musicians that way. And, you know, they don't want to be in the limelight or whatever. They just want to go out and play your wedding and enjoy that. And that's what I've done. Now, I'm a teacher now, so which I'm really pleased and honored to be. I currently teach at a school just near me as well. I actually teach music lessons there. I do teach the drums at these schools as well. And you can see probably in the background, if you're watching it on the video, you can see this is my studio. This is where I hang out and I teach my students. But we are the forgotten heroes, you know, no endorsements, no nothing. Like I said, nobody packs our drums away. We lug it in the back of the car, we go home, and we have loads and loads of fun. And, you know, people's lives are different and happier because we've done that. Now, the reason why this has come is because of this pandemic. I mean, it's terrible for everybody. I'm lucky. I'm one of the lucky ones. There are lots of people that are suffering really bad. The music industry as a whole, well, I don't have to tell you, it's pretty non-existent right now. But so I've got my studio and stuff, and I can hang out here, and most of my lessons are online at the minute because we're unable to do face-to-face. But these guys, you know, they probably packed their drums away. They haven't played for so long, and they're missing doing it. Now, when you go on the internet, as you probably listen to this now, you go on the internet, it's bombarded with all those major names. Most of the drum sites, if you follow them, are talking about the big names that we know. And the big names now are teaching, right? And okay, it's great because we can interact with them. We can actually have a lesson with them if you want. But, you know, there are some heroes that I know that teach and have taught for years some of these drummers, and they're still going to be around after it. I worry that these big names are going to go back on their tours when this is all over, and we're not going to see anything of them. And to be honest, I got a little fed up of seeing the big names. I'm not mentioning any names, by the way. You know, and I think, oh, somebody else is going to talk about his big gig and his endorsement and how the cymbal company have sent him that cymbal. Yeah, you know, those cymbals that we spend ages saving up for and then we go and play with. And, you know, don't get me wrong, it's great that they're doing that. But I can't help thinking that we've forgotten those people that are the genuine reason for that people love music, because they'll go to the wedding, see a band, and they'll go, wow, you know, and that's what I want to bring to the forefront. I want to bring those guys that are like me and you. Let's interview them for a change. Let's put them in the limelight, because for me, they're the hardest working guys. They set up their drums, they put it in the car, like I said. All right. So this is why I'm doing this. And you know, and I'm getting to the age now where I don't really want to gig 3 or 4 nights a week. I'm quite happy teaching, enjoying my school kids, that they love the music, and it's going to be a different generation coming up. And I don't want that new generation coming up thinking that, oh, I have to be a pop star, even though when I was in my, you know, probably 10 years old, I wanted to be exactly that. But, you know, I don't want them. I want them to take over our music. I still want music to happen in pubs, if there are any left, because I know it's a whole new subject for another podcast, but if there are pubs left that we can play in, I want that younger generation to think that it is worth something. And I've made a career out of it, and it is worth it. It's good for us as people. It's good for our character. We meet so many different characters as well, and that is the best thing about life in general. So, you know, so that's what the object of this podcast is going to be. Hopefully, if people want to get involved, we'll do our best to do that. I'm not a radio presenter, I'm just a drummer. And so that's what it's all about. Okay, so if you see this video or listen to this podcast, then please get in touch with me, because I need you. It's about you. It's not about me putting myself out there just because we're in a pandemic. I want to hear your stories. I want to hear that crazy gig when somebody crashes into the monitors in front of you, or somebody wants to have a go at your drums. Oh, I could tell you a story about that as well. One person that did want to go at my drums, I married her. So don't get stuck that way. So, you know, if you got them stories where you're getting told off by the bride because you're not ready, you can't get in the room because they're still serving the meal, and you've got an hour left to do the whole show that was meant to be 2.5 hours. I don't know, that kind of thing. Your breakdowns of your vans. Oh, we've got to be at a gig, we've just broke down. You take on too many gigs, you do 3 nights running, and the van breaks down. That's another night that we did. So it's all those kind of stories. So thank you for listening. I hope it's got you thinking. If we can get you thinking about, right, okay, yeah, I remember that gig, or I remember that gig. Because let's face it, a lot of people, when we go to tell these stories, you kind of like, really? And they're looking at you astonished and thinking, did that really happen? You know, I've told stories so many times, and they think... I'm sure they look at me as if I'm making it up, but no, I'm sadly not. So that's what this is all about. Please get in touch. I'm hoping to have my first guest on within a few weeks if this goes well, and also I'm going to tell you some of my stories as well. So thank you for listening to this short sort of podcast. I appreciate your time. We don't always have to be heroes. We just need to enjoy our music. So take care of yourself. And hopefully we will catch up soon. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Bye-bye. We're gonna rock and she's the jitterbop, baby, jitterbop.